Coming to you from the all-new Live House in Hollywood, California.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. How about audio for astronauts? We've got the NASA-based Emmy Award winner here to discuss every bit of that. It's fascinating. Plus a really cool piece on mixing for headphones. Speaking of headphones, we've got the final four winners of the AUSOUNDS Global Giveaway. Drum roll, please. The winners are Emily-Beth Hill from Woodford Halls, England. From San Diego, California, Justice Mann. All the way from Wellington, New Zealand, Trav Price. And Tashina Francis from Port Angeles, Washington. In fact, congratulations to all the winners. And a huge shout out to Marcus Sanchez, Kayla Belcher, and all the fine folk at AUSOUNDS for taking care of the Pensado's family. They've got a new product line coming soon, and we'll let you know. It's going to be special. But before we talk audio and astronauts, we've got a cool piece on mixing with headphones. Here's Mitch Gallagher with sound advice, brought to you by Sweetwater.
Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. Welcome to Sound Advice. I'm often asked, can you mix with headphones? The answer, of course, is yes, you certainly can mix with headphones. But a better question is, should you mix with headphones? Certainly they can be more convenient and practical in many situations, and if you keep a few key things in mind, you'll get great results. The first thing to remember is that headphones exaggerate panning. The headphones are right on your ears, so as you move signals back and forth across the stereo panorama, they tend to show up more dramatically on one side or the other. It may sound like things are much more hard panned to one side than they actually are when you listen to them over speakers. The second thing to remember is that headphones can exaggerate reverb, delay, ambience, and other effects. Things may sound drier in headphones than they do in a room, or they may sound wetter. You'll want to check out your headphones and compare so that you know what to expect when you're adding ambience to your mixes. Third, headphones may not accurately translate dynamics and relative balances in the same way that monitors will. The only way to counter this is to ensure that you know your headphones very well. You want to listen to a lot of music and what happens as you move a fader, as you turn something up and down in a mix, how it places itself front to back, all of those kind of things so that you know what's happening when you're hearing sounds come out of the headphones. Fourth, remember that headphones may not be completely accurate in all frequency ranges. I often notice this in the bass frequency range. The headphones may be using some sort of trickery to increase the amount of bass that you're hearing with those small drivers close up against your ears. And in this case, you'll tend to mix with not enough bass. Your mixes will come out bass light. Or if the headphones don't have enough low frequency response, you'll tend to add too much bass, and then when you listen over monitors, your mixes will sound boomy. Again, the key is to learn them extremely well. You need to listen to all kinds of music at different volume levels as well. And then practice mixing. This isn't something that we often do, but create some mixes and listen to what happens when you do those mixes in your headphones and then play them back over speakers. Always take your mixes out and listen to them on speaker systems so you can hear what's happening in the real world versus what's happening just inside the headphones. I did a good percentage of the editing and mixing on my recent EP using headphones. I worked in a bedroom studio at home, in coffee shops, on airplanes, and hotel rooms, and I got to know the process extremely well. One trick I used was listening on multiple sets of headphones to get a better overall or average picture of what's happening. Now, I prefer to use higher-end headphones when I'm mixing. I find they sound great, and generally they're more comfortable for long listening sessions. Here are a few of my favorites that I used when I was mixing my EP. The one I used the most was a Sennheiser HD650. I find that this is a really balanced headphone, fits my head really well, so it's very comfortable. But I also worked a lot using the SRH 1540 from Shure. These are a little brighter headphones, so they give me more high-frequency detail and bring out some of the things that I don't hear with the Sennheisers. I also used the AKG K872s. Now, these are very high-end headphones and they sound great. They're also extremely comfortable. By using the three different sets, I was able to compare, work on my mixes at different times, listen on the different phones, and get a great overall picture. But many people are surprised to learn that a great deal of the work I did on my EP was using Bose earbuds. Now, these are simple, sport-level Bose earbuds. They're not studio grade, but I simply know them so well because I listen to them so much that I can work on them with confidence, and that really is the key. You really need to be confident of what you're hearing in your headphones in order to mix well when using them. And even though you can mix very well using headphones and even earbuds, I do recommend that the last stage always be listening on studio monitors. If you can't do this in your current situation for whatever reason, it's worth it to book even a couple of hours in a studio just for a last confidence check to ensure that you're getting a good transportable mix. Things always sound different when you hear them over monitors than they do when you're listening in headphones. So to answer our question for today, can I mix on headphones? The answer is absolutely. You just have to take a little extra care and ensure that you really know your headphones well. And always do a final confidence check on studio monitors. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater Sound Advice. I'm Mitch Gallagher.
Family, meet Alexandria Perryman. She applies her audio skills all throughout NASA. It's absolutely fascinating. To infinity and beyond. Hey.
Hey.
Boy, I gotta tell
what's
you.
up?
I gotta tell you, which I told you on the phone, the minute that I knew that you existed, I damn near broke my fingers, my computer, my phone, and everything else trying. And I know when I got to you, I apologize if we were just so excited about what you do, but also who you are. That's as much of it. Here's what's amazing. There's so much to cover. Your job encompasses so many facets of audio: live, post, podcasting, streaming. You're training astronauts. Tell us about your gig.
Yeah, my job is, I always like to joke with people and tell them if there's anything about audio, then we pretty much have to do it all at NASA. Usually you have people that are, they're live engineers or mixing engineers, so they do audio post or they do audio design. I have to be able to do it all. And I always tell people that I'm a jack of all trades, master of some, not none, but some.
Is there something that you like more than others?
I think for me, I'm a little biased because it's the podcasting, and I think it's because I'm the co-creator of it, and so I got to set the standard of how our podcast is going. I'm the chief engineer of it, and also the producer, and I record it, I edit, I come up with ideas with our host, and so it's kind of like my NASA baby. So I'm a little bit biased towards that, even though that wasn't the first thing I did when I got to NASA.
Is the moon launch and landing real?
100% yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it was. So when you're talking to somebody on a spacewalk, for example, can you give me like a breakdown of your equipment, the lag time, probably 2 or 3 seconds to get to that particular astronaut? And do you just monitor it, or do you give them directions like, hey, dude, your zipper's down or something?
No. So during a spacewalk, I don't have to actively talk to them, thank God, because that thing goes on for about 8.5 hours. It's a marathon. But what I do for a spacewalk is their audio comes down on an encoder, and that goes through our space to grounds, what we call is different channels. Ones that goes up, space to ground up, and space to ground down. So up is going up to the astronaut, what they're hearing from Capcom and Mission Control, the person that you hear that's constantly talking to the astronauts. Their audio goes up and the astronaut's audio comes back down. And when they're talking on the space to ground voice loops, it's almost like talking on a walkie-talkie, and it sounds exactly like a walkie-talkie. So I don't have to do much of mixing when it comes to that, but I do have like a ducker in for the commentator.
Do you end up having to duck a lot
interacting with
the crosstalk because of the conversation?
I usually, the commentators are usually the ones who are cross talking to others. The astronauts and Mission Control are really, really good. It's usually the commentators, and they've gotten a lot better at, because they have to listen into what's going on as well. So if they hear the astronauts start talking, they immediately stop their sentence, which is why if you watch a live show, you'll hear the commentator maybe in mid-sentence and they'll stop talking. It's because the astronauts are communicating, and that takes priority.
The recent SpaceX launch was about a 24-hour broadcast from NASA. Did you have to stay in the whole 24 hours?
So we took shifts for that one because it literally took our entire team. So we had to do shifts. I did the overnight shift because they just like picking on me and give me the, I think I worked from, I want to say 6 p.m. to about 3:30 in the morning. And then we had someone come in at 3 and we exchanged shifts, but it was on air for 24 hours straight. And it was interesting, but I think the adrenaline in all of us is what kept us awake. I don't know if I could be able to do that multiple days in a row, but that was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, I understand the adrenaline thing.
Is this a corollary? When we've had people on who've done big events like the SpaceX launch, to me seemed like your Super Bowl. From how many different teams, all the coordination, and what a lot of people don't understand is you guys rehearsed a ton, correct?
Oh, we did. We rehearsed That launch happened. Was it May? All my days are going in together now.
Us too. We don't know.
But that launch happened in probably around the May June timeframe, and we literally started rehearsing this launch show back in January.
Really?
And we went weeks of rehearsing because you have folks from SpaceX, folks from Mission Control side of Houston, and Kennedy Space Center all mixed in together for one broadcast show. And we actually have to do what we call a hot jump, where Kennedy starts the show off up until they launch. And once they reach a certain point in orbit, Johnson Space Center, where I'm at, we take over the show without stopping the signal going out. So we had to really rely heavily on technology. And it's kind of like a well-orchestrated dance of figuring out, okay, who takes precedence of this signal that's going out right now? Who's the main commentator? And working with these 3 different groups, and we've never worked before together for a show like this. We did it for the test run, but it wasn't on this level, and it wasn't dealing with all the eyes of the world really watching, and it was something big. But it was a lot of fun and a lot of lessons learned from that show that we're working to make the return show that's going to be happening in the August timeframe just as big as the launch show.
I'm so jealous. I put on an award show, and it feels like a lot, and now I feel like a punk. When you say hot jump and Kennedy transfers over and then we take it over, I want that. It's so good. So good.
I was just about to say, Herb, I feel so inadequate to ask any more questions. I'm just a simple mix engineer. I'm like listening to her, and I'm like, damn, man, what's the maximum age I can work at NASA? You know. There's a lot of stress in what you do. That I'm positive of that. It's that type of job and that type of work where a lot of live things are happening, and you don't control every one of the external elements. There was one about a console that I read about. Can you share that with the audience? Because I can't imagine being in a situation like that.
That situation was yeah, it was so rough for me. So we use at Johnson Space Center Euphonics S5 console. It's a dinosaur, but it was created specifically for Johnson Space Center. It's about, I think now about 20 years old, and it works great because we never turn it off. We usually always keep it on, and unless we do a scheduled power down, but we have to keep it on because the audio is always going out. But that thing, we were in the middle of a spacewalk, and all of a sudden I was getting like popping noises from the space to ground channels on the console. And I was like, what is going on? And the audio kept going in and out for those channels. And so I'm explaining to the producer what's going on, and the commentator what's happening. The commentator said, well, how can you fix it? I was like, well, one sure way I know to fix it is to restart the console. And I can't do that while we're live on air. We're going to be live on air because we had just started. It was around 6:30 in the morning. So we had really just gotten into our show, and that show wasn't going to wrap up till about 2:30 in the afternoon. So it was like, okay, I don't have enough time to shut that console down. It's a big console. It takes about a good 15 to 20 minutes to shut it down properly and restart it back up. You know, you got to go through and power down all the cores and things like that. So the first thing that came to my mind is, okay, I'm going to have to patch all of these channels that are acting up to the other side of the console that I'm not using into free channels. And I asked the producer, I was like, do we have a video playback that's coming up? Because that channel wasn't affected. He said, yeah, it's about 7 minutes long. I was like, good, let's go to video. So I took that 7 minutes and I was patching like crazy into the patch bay. I mean, actual patches, not a digital patch bay, but an actual patch bay, patching all these channels into the other side. And I think I did it with like 30 seconds to spare, and my hands were shaking. It definitely woke me up. I didn't eat my coffee after that.
Man, okay, I'm done. I got tired just listening to that. That's amazing.
But I think what's interesting about it, because you started there 2015, correct?
Yes.
For our audience, the idea of being able to problem solve in the middle of something is part of the key, and it's old school enough that it's real patches, it's not digital patches, and it's instructive when you see somebody as good as Alexandria, as recognized as she is, and more coming, that in the midst of it, she went back to old, good, basic knowledge to solve something on the fly. This is you don't always get the chance to stop and get it perfect and so on and so forth. So you got to stay on your toes and get things done. That's the difference between good and great. It's just fascinating. One of the other things you do that I think is so critical for future folks is you have an ongoing archiving process, correct? Where not only are you archiving things, but people can actually tune in and listen. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we digitally archive our daily space to ground conversations. So that's like the astronauts talking to mission control. We daily archive that. I actually am running some archiving files right now on my other computer. And that it goes to a website called archive.org, and you can actually type in NASA mission control audio. You can listen to all the space to grounds. The only things that's privatized is if they're talking to their family, which they do all the time, or if they're doing medical things, because we don't need to put that out to the public. But other than that, you can hear their conversations about almost everything that's going on the space station at that time. Wow. And it's really cool. It's really cool because we also do the archiving of the previous tapes, like actual tape archiving. And that's what, when I first started working at NASA, that's the first thing that had me doing was doing those other tape archiving until I was able to get processed into the computers and things like that and got my feet wet with live shows. I was doing a lot of tape archiving.
Wow. And in the actual suit, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, that's right. My question isn't that important. Seriously. Do you ever have to edit cuss words out, like F-bombs and stuff like that?
No, I don't edit anything out. I don't.
So if they cuss, it goes out to the archives?
It goes out to the archives. It's public domain. I mean, I've listened to conversations, like they seem to be really lax back in the 70s. Like you would have people talking about what their wives are cooking for dinner that night or what they're going to go have for lunch on the device, which you will not hear that now in mission control. Back then, they were so lax with it. You could actually go back and listen to those conversations. And it's like, wow, I feel like I'm just listening to someone's phone call.
Yeah, right. That's amazing. And God knows Dave and I don't need to be in space because the discussion would just be awful. Oh my Lord. So in the other stuff that I find fascinating about the process in almost any environment, it's not ADR, it's not Foley, but it's the ambient, it's what's going on that are sounds that are interesting. So you have in the spacesuit itself, there are mics built in, right? So if somebody's going through an airlock, for instance, or whatever the case may be, you hear that process. Do you have control over those mics in terms of them being open and closed, or?
No, so my position in the audio control room, I don't have to have control of that part. That's already built into their suits, and they're able to control their open mics and block off themselves. And there's another place in mission control that's called Houston Voice. Those are the ones who privatize the audio that what needs to go out. So once it gets to me, whatever I get can go out to the public.
Got it. Oh, so fascinating, man.
Herb and I were talking earlier before the show, and we were talking about that same thing, and you could actually hear one of the astronauts bump his head on the airlock, and then somebody else hit their elbow on it. What I found interesting about that is it made noise inside the spacecraft, but nothing on the outside could be heard. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So anyway, in terms of NASA and SpaceX, was it hard to integrate the two teams together for this particular latest launch or something?
I think what made it difficult is because SpaceX does their shows that they're used to doing on their own are structured differently than ours. And then on top of that, they don't usually, up until now, didn't have humans involved. And so now that there's humans involved and you have Houston Mission Control and SpaceX Mission Control, they have to go by the protocols of what it is for humans. So that coordination was a little off at first during our rehearsals, but once they realized and everybody understood we could able to merge our two shows together. And that's the reason why you saw them bounce between Hawthorne, California and Mission Control and Kennedy Space Center, is because we figured it out how to merge our shows to make one collective big show.
Don,
I know this isn't related. Oh, I'm sorry, Harry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say two process questions. One is, I would assume that in being hired to NASA, you're having to clear security clearances and make sure all that goes to have access, which would make sense. And then how do you do your job now during a pandemic?
Yeah, so for me, I did have to get a certain type of security clearance. I'm not a civil servant, so I'm a federal contractor, so I don't have to necessarily go through their ways of doing things. But I do get not classified information, but sensitive information. So there's a lot of monthly trainings that I have to do for cybersecurity and things like that. Have to very extensive background check before I was even able to get hired. And now working from home, it's really interesting because to be able to access my work computer, I have to go through like 3 different ways of verifying that I am who I am. I have to put my badge in, I have to put a code in, and to just to unlock my computer. And then I can unlock my computer, but in order to access the files that I need, or even my NASA email, I have to then VPN into the NASA network. And
Wow.
so it's a lot. It's difficult because that VPN will time out after like 6 hours. It seems like for me, and that makes it difficult whenever you're trying to like access files or download or transfer files, especially when I'm editing the podcast at home on my own personal computer, and I need to get that file back into my work computer. And if it goes through the VPN and the VPN crashes out, well, now I got to restart over that transferring process. So that's been the hardest part, is that going through the security for NASA.
Are there any suggestions you have for our sound?
What do you mean? You guys
For the
sound
sound
great.
of our show, can we? So you give us a passing grade?
Yeah, I give you guys a passing grade. You guys are great. I mean, I watched your show when I was a student in college, so it's I would lean on you guys' show to figure out how to learn how to do what I do now. So I love it.
So I just want to just take license now. I'm going to tell 1 or 2 close friends that in the most extended, not connected, 12 steps out, there's somebody at NASA who's influencing audio for the universe that we had a tiny impact on. And that's going to be my own personal pride moment. And I'm going to get me a NASA hat, and it's going to have special meaning to me because of you. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. Here's the other part that I found interesting. You actually have to train astronauts about audio, right, before they go up. What goes into that?
Yeah, so it's not so much like it's I get like a whole bunch of time to sit them down, and this is a world of audio and this is signal flow. It's more of, you're going to be up in the space station. You have a push to talk microphone. If you want to talk, push it. When you're done talking, please press it off, because if not, the audio that I'm sending you is going to reverb and echo right back through, and I can't control that part. So help me by cutting your microphone on and off, and basically how to plug it into the camera that they're using, since it all comes down one signal path for them, whatever they're using, the HD camera. So plug the microphone that you want to use into channel 1, and that way I can be able to pick it up down here on Earth. And that's really the hardest part of training them. But that, you'll be surprised how many astronauts that turn the mic on, the push the talk button catches them every single time.
And what they don't understand is that reverb really pisses people off on Mars. Like once it starts to go out.
Yeah.
Now here's another thing too that a lot of people don't know, is that your time at Full Sail and your incredible mentor Leslie Braithwaite, who we absolutely love. You love music too. You love music.
Yeah.
And you love mixing and talk about your music side.
Yeah, so on music side, I mean, growing up, I've always loved music. My entire family was involved in music. My grandmother was in a singing group. My mother was in a singing group with her sisters. My sister was in all-state choir. I did not get the singing gene, but I do play instruments. So I was in band, and that's when I really fell in love with music. I played saxophone while I was in band, starting in 5th grade. And then when I got to Full Sail, I really wanted to produce music. I fell in love with it. I was like, oh, I want to do that. That's what I'm going to do. So I still produce music at home all the time. I do for certain artists. Here lately, I've been pushing more towards YouTube creators. They're really liking this not having to deal with, copyright by just getting it straight from me. So that's been my way of still being able to get my music buzz out.
Oh, cool. Does your music chops help you in other places?
Yeah, it definitely does. It actually, the music and NASA world combined so beautifully one day. We had Garth Brooks come to Mission Control and tour, and he brought his guitar with him, and he was going to play the astronauts a song. And so they had me go inside Mission Control, and basically I was having a shotgun microphone, and my entire job was to follow Garth Brooks around with that guitar and my shotgun microphone. I was like, I never thought that I would be following Garth Brooks around inside Mission Control to capture his audio that's going up to space. It just blew my mind.
How amazing is that? It is absolutely amazing. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What's the difference between Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center, and Houston? What's the overall function? I've been to Kennedy. But what's the difference between the three?
Yeah. So the main big difference is that Kennedy Space Center that's where they do the launching of the rockets, right? Johnson Space Center in Houston, that's where Mission Control actually is. So the astronauts, when they get into space, that's who they're talking to, are the folks in Houston. That's why you always hear them say, Houston this, or Houston, we've had a problem, because they're talking to the Mission Control in Houston. Kennedy is in charge of training them for the launch process and actually launching them up into space. But once they get there, Mission Control in Houston takes over.
Amazing.
Is there still a Cape Canaveral, or is that just what it got renamed to Kennedy?
It's still Cape Canaveral because it was a base. They still call it Cape at the Cape, but the actual Space Center is called Kennedy Space Center.
Got it. And are you a Houston native?
I am.
Gotcha. So you're a Rockets fan?
Huge Rockets fan.
Gotcha. Because as we speak, I'm a huge Laker fan, and they are playing on TV today.
Oh, I know. It's in the background.
Nice. I love you. I love you even more. So yeah, I'm excited. So I got space and Lakers together. Couldn't be better. Here's a question was there any impediments when you got hired? Gender, race, anything that you noticed? It's an unusual job to begin with, and it's amazing to see you do it so well without having to think about any of those things. But did you ever encounter any of that stuff along the way?
Yeah, not so much about my gender or not even my race. I think the main thing was my age. Because when I got hired at NASA, I was 22.
What?
And yeah, I'm just 26. So when I got hired at NASA, I was 22. I was the kid. And, I had these folks looking at me like, who is this kid telling me that the audio doesn't sound right? I was like, well, that's my job to do it. So, but over time, able to gain trust from like the producers or the editors. And then they started respecting me as, I'm not an audio professional. I don't know what I'm doing. This is Alex's job. I'm going to let her handle that. And my supervisors were great at saying, especially early on, nope, this is Alex's show. Any of your audio questions, you need to ask her about that. And so that's helped me along the way. And then, those times where I had to come in and save the day when the console was messing up, or I had to, run out in the middle of a set to try to fix somebody's mic at the last minute. That's what made, those small things is what made my crew trust me. So it was one of those things. They didn't trust me as much because of my age.
Wow. I would never have thought that you were 26. Your command of it is so amazing. And frankly, as somebody part of the audio community and whatever little bit we contributed, it's stuff like that makes us proud. Like when you just see badass personified by 100, it's just absolutely wonderful. Speaking of badass, over your shoulder is an Emmy Award. Tell us what the category was and tell us who you were up against for the category.
So this Emmy is from the 2019 Creative Arts Emmys. And the category that we were in, let me see, I have to actually turn around and look. It was for Outstanding Interactive Programming. And we were in that category, I believe, with The Daily Show and a lot of late night TV shows. And then we beat them out of that. Yeah, all that. Yeah, it was pretty interesting because the funny thing about it is that I knew we were nominated, but I actually didn't know we won until like my friend Dan Hewitt, who actually was the person who went up to accept the award on our behalf, he sent me a text. He's like, "Hey, you just won an Emmy." And I was like, "Oh, cool, NASA won an Emmy." He goes, "No, you won an Emmy. Like this, you're going to get one. You won an Emmy." I was like, "What?"
Wow.
No. And I didn't believe them until the actual statue came in. I was like, "Yeah, right. I'm not getting an actual statue with my name on it."
And look at there. Oh, congratulations. So
Thank
good.
you.
So good. So good. Now,
So
Dave,
I'm gonna try
go ahead.
and I'm gonna geek out and nerd out a little bit. I got to, I just got to. So when a signal is going from the space station to you, is it like a classic AES type of digital signal, and then you have like a classic D-A converter, or how do you convert a signal you get from space through your console into audio? Or you said at one time. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that so if it's an HD signal, so if they're using like an HD camera, it's going to come down from their encoder into our what we call our master control, their decoder, and then they'll send that to us on a utility line. And from that utility line, I usually get it as a stereo file to be able to put out. Now the space to ground loops, they are mono. And so that bounces off of satellites to satellites, and then it comes down like radio transmission. So that's the reason why we have those dropouts where everyone's like freaking out. It's like, oh, NASA's screen went blue. Oh, we can't hear them talking anymore. It's because they're going around the Earth so fast, 17,000 miles per hour, and they're having to hit each satellite. So they're able to time it, to know, okay, we're getting ready to have a dropout in about 30 seconds. So we know we're going to have a dropout. It's the public that usually freaks out.
Mm.
So is that the situation that you've been so proud of, and rightly so, that you've never missed a dropout?
Yeah,
did it come from that?
Yeah, because our mission control team, those folks they're absolutely amazing. Like they are the rock stars right there. That ground team is the way they're able to figure out that math down to the second to know, because for them, that's the only time they'll get a chance to take a break or, get up to go to the bathroom is whenever there's that signal dropout. Because as long as the astronaut signal is there, they're sitting there at their console and they're watching and they're listening. So when it gets they're like, okay, the signal's going to be gone for about a good 30 minutes. Okay, well, we can step outside. We can use a bathroom break or something like that. And they also have a back team that is watching as well, just in case they miss something. So it's always backups on backups on backups. That team is amazing.
Wow. I'm so blown away. And the fact that you're also now a sports fan means that you got to wade into batter's box with all that Houston, Texas thing on there. Dave's a Floridian. And I have a feeling, Dave, that you're in trouble because she can hit you on the ground and she can hit you from space. And you don't even know when the space shit hit you. So tee it up, sir, because you got on your cool Apollo shirt in honor. But
check this out, everybody.
Digging that shirt.
Good. All right, let's tee up batter's box. And
hey, this is a totally so let's have at it. What's your favorite planet?
Pluto.
Education.
Let's see. Astrology. Let's go.
Okay. Astronauts.
Buzz Aldrin.
SpaceX or NASA? Which would you choose?
Oh, NASA.
International Space Station.
Microgravity.
Curveball for you. WWE.
Oh, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Your favorite microphone?
Shure SM58.
Favorite spacecraft, Dragon or original shuttle?
I'm going to have to go with the Dragon.
Ooh. Okay, do you love it or hate it? Houston, we have a problem.
I love it. I'm
tired of it.
I love it.
That's a great answer.
Well, this isn't a batter's box, but do you ever use plugins?
Yes. I use quite a few plugins.
Yeah. Like what? What do you use?
Oh, that's cool.
For the podcast, I'm using a lot of the Isotope RX plugins. Those are lifesavers for me because the audio quality. I've used a couple of Waves plugins. I'm not so sure on the exact names of them, but I know we have those boxes that I've used and messed around with a lot of their things. But that Isotope RX system that's my baby.
We have a few. We have a few folks involved with us, as you know, over the years, and oftentimes we try to let folks know about plugins we really like. Do you care if we shoot you a few that we like?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll just send them to you. We'll get you NFR.
Yeah.
Like Leapwing and other things. Folks that also are getting rave reviews other places. We like our folks to know about them and see. We don't have a vested interest in them, but if it's a good tool for you, it's a good deed for us.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I got to tell you, and the worst part about our show is that great shows fly by. Like you forget it's a show. I mean, you do a podcast, you produce a podcast.
Yeah.
So when it's rocking, it's rocking. It's like sitting around at a dinner table and drinking wine and eating and talking and that's what I can't believe what time it is and how much stuff we've gone through. So I got to request two things. One, that you'll come back on.
Oh, of course, yes.
And two, if we ever get to visit people, whatever Dave and I have to do to have a tour of wherever you work, if that's even possible, you'll probably change Dave's life, honestly. He's been there, but we want the tour part. But lastly, before Dave wraps it up, I alluded to this earlier, and I just want to say it again in a different way. The audio community for us, oftentimes because of the caliber of the guests that we get, often give us great pride. There are people out here who are just brilliant and who are pushing the envelope and doing cutting edge things. And people have learned how important audio is. It is a critical discipline, and no other discipline exists without it. That's just the fact. Out of 500 some odd shows, countless hours, and 160 million minutes of YouTube consumed, we've not had anybody like you. And it is absolutely amazing. So proud of you. So glad that we have been part of your journey. And we won't stalk you, but you can't get rid of us.
No, definitely. I'm more than happy to be on this show. And thank you guys for continuing to have this show for audio engineers to continue learning and to getting that first fresh look at things. So thank you for having the show for as long as you've had it.
Oh, our pleasure. Dave, wrap us up.
Well, Herb, you kind of did, and so I like what you said. Let me extend it a little further. Herb has always been an advocate that we bring to you shows that show different parts of the audio profession that you might like to work in. So not everybody needs to be a mix engineer. Not everybody needs to do post-production. But this is the classic example, Herb, of an audio career that's outside the music realm that I wish I could be a part of. And thank you for sharing everything with us, Alex. And we'll see you guys next week. Think about it.
Sky's the limit, for real. Peace.